And I'd like to say, before I start here, I know that in our generations, people have had rough lives. They really have. There's people that's had a lot worse life than I did, and I understand that. I'm not trying to compare lives with anybody, but I would like for people to understand that the Bible that we read, a lot of people, when I was a sinner, the Bible had no meaning to me because I didn't know what was in it. And till you know something, till you know, not somebody else knows, but till you know, things don't really have a meaning to it. I've heard people say, I'm ready to lose a loved one, and you'll feel for them, but that don't touch you until it knocks on your door and it comes to your house. Then it's got a whole different meaning. And a lot of people go to church. My mom went to church off and on. I found out years later my dad had been saved and was a backslider and full of the Holy Ghost at one time. But you would have never known that. So people go to church, people go golfing, people go bowling. And in my lifetime, that's the way I looked at it, because I never seen anything that would make me think that there was something to the Bible or something to church. And so you have to know for yourself. And I'm just saying all this because when I share this testimony of what God's done for me, I don't say it to get pity or anything of that nature. I'm talking about me and nobody else. You see, when it happened to me, when it took place in my life, it became real. I'm telling you, it became real. And I could sit and listen to somebody before I got to know the Lord, and it didn't mean a thing to me. It didn't mean nothing. Because I was so deceived and lived a life that where I didn't trust nobody anyway, so it didn't matter to me what they went through. Life was about me and my circumstances until I met Him. So it's good to be here, and I just wanted to share that so that people would understand when I talk, they understand where I'm coming from. I appreciate my wife. I love her. Appreciate my daughter-in-laws. I got 4 of them, and they're all saved. And they're all talented. I got 15 grandchildren. You know, the devil told me I'd never have nothing. That's what he tells you. You won't have nothing, and you'll never be nothing. But I'm blessed, and I appreciate the Lord. And this spirit, the love we feel here tonight, money couldn't buy that. Money couldn't buy that. So I was raised in Covington, Kentucky. I was born in 1949, and my dad was a musician, country and western singer. And I don't know if people remember, but there was a station on the TV called the Midwestern Hayride on WLW. You have to remember that we came from a generation where there was no computers, no cell phones, no air conditions, no microwaves. And the TV we had was a black and white, and you had 3 stations, 5, 9, and 12. And you had to shut the curtains and close the doors in order to see the screen at night because the TV was in such bad shape. And it was black and white. So that's where we came from, see? Different generation. Different, same kind of world, just different generation. So the wisdom of man and the knowledge of men has really increased. My. So I was born into a family. My mom worked at a dime store in Covington, Kentucky as a waitress. Behind the counter, and my dad was a musician. He was a drunkard. He never would work. He always thought he was going to be a big movie star. He was on TV, on the Midwestern Hayride, and so he spent his life pretty much pursuing his career and not taking care of his family. I was the 4th child born. There were 6 of us in the family. I had 3 sisters ahead of me. I was the first boy born, and when they called my dad and told him that he had a boy finally, he was playing music and he was drunk, and he said, "Name him Philip." And at that time, that was a bad name to name anybody, because that was the name of a popular cigarette at the time, Philip Morris. And so I got teased a lot in my lifetime. I wouldn't hardly tell nobody my last name. I'd just say Philip. And they'd make fun of that because Philip Morris, little guy on TV, would come on and holler for Philip Morris. And it was really embarrassing to grow up with a name like that. So I was born with club feet. Had to wear certain shoes. I was born cross-sighted. I was so cross-sighted that I couldn't look at people. They'd laugh at me because when I look at them, they'd turn around to see who I was looking at. And I'd be looking straight at them, and they'd start laughing. So when I talked to people, I talked with my head down. I didn't look at people. And we were poor. I didn't know we was poor, but we were poor. We walked 2 miles to school, put cardboard in our shoes, had one pair of shoes, and they were hand-me-downs, and we'd put cardboard in them, and we would use them up until we couldn't put no more cardboard in them. And we'd walk to school. We lived in a project, and of course, Mom worked at the dime store, and she had change. I learned to do a lot of things that wasn't right when I was young in order to survive. We was very hungry. I always stayed hungry, seemed like. And they had a donut truck that would come up on that project early in the morning before school and blow that horn and go around to different areas. And Mom would give us enough money to buy 1 dozen donuts if you could catch the truck. My job was to catch that donut truck. Now, if I missed him, we didn't get breakfast. I never did miss that truck. I want you to know. And we had 2 donuts apiece. There was a dozen. We had 6 of us, 2 donuts apiece. Well, the guy, later on I found out, would always give me 13 donuts because he felt sorry for me because I had to run after him. Of course, I'd eat that donut before I got to the house. I wouldn't tell nobody, you know. So we would get our breakfast. That's how we ate breakfast. We didn't have lunch. I'm sad to say we didn't have lunch. We were poor, I'm telling you, and I would eat lunch out of garbage cans at school, to be honest with you. People, they had lunch, and they'd bring lunch, and they'd take a bite off of it and throw it away. I'd grab it. I was just that way. But our life was in that state, you know. We had it rough, and so Mom worked at the dime store. Dad, he would never hardly come home, and when he did, it wasn't good because then Mom would tell him all the things we did wrong while he was gone, and then he would take things into his own hand, take care of us, you know. So life was pretty tough, and at the age of 4 years old, the state came and took us away from our parents, put us in a home. We were in a home for about a year. I was 4 years old, stayed till I was 5. They separated my sisters from me, so I didn't get to see them much. And the only thing I remember about that home was this big woman would put me in a bed and raise that bed up, and she'd stuff hominy in my mouth. And she'd tell me hominy was good, and I had to eat it. And if I didn't eat it, I couldn't get out of that bed. Well, I learned to outsmart that lady. I'd wait till she get out of the room, and I climbed out of that bed, and they had a big old register, steam register, and I'd shove that hominy down that register, climb back up into bed with that tray. She'd come in there and pat me on the head and say, "You're a good boy, you ate it all." So I learned that you could get around things at a young life. Life was pretty bad. It really was. At the age of 10 years old, we was getting ready for school. We lived in a project. Dad, I heard screaming and crying. I ran downstairs, found out my dad had come home. Him and my mom got into it. He hit my mom, broke her back, broke her arm, and ran out of the house. So my mom laid in a hospital for a while with a cask. I used to sit on the steps and say, why was I born into this family? Why was life like this? We don't pick our parents. We don't pick our home. We just were born into this world, and that's where it goes. Mom, you would tell me, she would say, you're never going to be any good. You're never going to be raised to do anything. It's in your blood. She said, you'll always be like your dad and his family. My dad had a brother that came out of the military, and he had mental problems. Him and his cousin went hunting together, got to drinking. My dad's brother killed his cousin and buried him over a rabbit. We came from a wicked family, hardcore family. They always tell me, you're going to be just like them. There ain't no sense of you trying to do anything else. You're just like them. Well, you grow up believing that. After a while, you grow up believing those things. And so you lose sight of everything else in life. I did. I could care less what people thought of me. I could care less what they did. I could care less how anybody looked at me. I was in bad shape at a young age, being cross-sighted, you know, and the condition I was in. And they took me to the doctor. The doctor said, well, you'll be blind by the time you're 23 years old. Said, your eyes are really bad. But life went on for me. At the age of 14 years old, I got a job working for the Board of Education, sweeping classrooms. And in order to do that, you had to leave house at 6 in the morning, be at school at 7, sweep classrooms till 8:30, go to school at 8:30, get out at 3:30, sweep classrooms until 5:30 at night, walk home. On Saturday, you had to get up at 8, be at school at 9, scrub the basement out, the toilets and the commodes and all that, clean the basement up until about 12 o'clock, and then you get to go home. We did that for $89 a month. I did that so Mom could help feed us and that we would have food on the table. So I never missed a day of school. I was the biggest kid in the 6th grade. I was 16 years old in the 6th grade. At the age of 16, my mom and my dad had divorced several years before that, and my dad married a young woman about 20-some years old. My mom got mad, and she married a guy 4 years older than my oldest sister. My sister was 18, and the gentleman that she married was 22. And he had just got out of Vietnam. He was a young man. I couldn't stand him, to be honest with you. I didn't like anybody, to tell you the truth. And so we had a lot of problems, me and him, and that's the way our life was. But one night, I had been out with my dad, me and my sister, for a few hours that we had met him. And it was in January. And we came home to my mom's house and my stepdad. And me and my mom got into a big argument. I can't even remember what it was about. But I remember my stepdad jumped in and grabbed hold of me and him fought. And my mom went in the bedroom and packed all my clothes in 2 IGA bags, grocery bags. I had 2 bags. She shoved them in my arms, shoved my sister that I was with, her clothes in her bags, and shoved them in her arms and kicked us out. It was about 1 inch of snow on the ground, 16 years old, and it was about 11:30 at night. We walked to town. She went to visit one of her friends. She worked at a restaurant. So my sister cried all the way to town, walking, snowing, cold. She called her friend. Her friend came and got her. I slept on park benches. I slept in parked cars. And I was scared, I'll tell you, 16 years old. And I vowed to myself I would never go back home. That was it for me. My sister said she'd never go back home. 2 weeks later, she did go back home. I never did. I finally got a job working at a Flames restaurant, making $28 a week, washing dishes. I got me a room for $10, had a bed in it and a bathroom. I had $18 left over, and I ate at the restaurant, and I thought I was the main guy of town. $18 in my pocket, had food to eat, and had a place to stay. So that's how I lived. I got wrapped up in some bad stuff with some guys, started doing things, hating everybody, hating life. I'm telling you, every time I've seen one of my family, they tell me, you're never going to be nothing. You are nothing. You got no education. Never went to high school. So that's the way my life was. It didn't matter to me what they said, because they never done nothing for me no way. And did you ever live a life where all you wanted was somebody to love you? All you needed was somebody to love you. And couldn't find it. Nowhere. Seemed like nobody cared. All they wanted was the money you made or what you had. And it was a tough life. So I worked at these restaurants, and my sister worked as a waitress. I worked as a busboy, and then I got promoted. A dishwasher, got promoted to a busboy, and finally got to become a cook. So I was doing pretty good. Life got bad and got worse. And so the Vietnam War was going on, so I decided that before something happened to me and I'd wind up going to jail, I'd go to service. So I joined the military. Lord help us. I all week, Brother Henson, last 2 weeks, I went over this and went over this and went over this, and I got to crying to think that I'm alive today, that somebody absolutely loved me. Can you believe that? I joined the military at the age of 21. I signed up to go to Vietnam. I hated life. I hated everybody. I hated my own self because I knew I was nothing. I knew I would be nothing. I knew I had no education. I didn't have no money. I didn't have a family. And I knew that something was going to take place in my life if I didn't do something. So I joined the Army, went to the military. And after my basic AIT training, I got on a plane to go to Vietnam, and they came on board as we were flying from Fort Lewis, Washington. They came on and said, no more troops to Nam. So they sent us to Korea. In Korea, you're only supposed to stay 12 months. It's a hardship tour. So I went to Korea. I got over there, and I stayed 12 months. Got into some situations over there, got into a lot of trouble. So they gave me an option to work on the DMZ or to get back to the States and face some things that I'd done. So I volunteered to go to the DMZ, and they would fly you up on the DMZ, and that's where South Korea and North Korea are separated. And we would be in the bunkers, and we'd stay up there 30 days, come down 2 weeks, and go back up 30 days. They'd fly us in, drop us off, and once you were up there, brother. And it was a different world. But I got up there and working with these guys, and there was like 15 guys on each shift. I had 15 guys, and the next guy that came up for 30 days, he had 15 guys. And I started concentrating on getting the site cleaned up and helping these guys get enrolled in correspondence courses. And they were away from home, and Christmas would come, and some of these guys wouldn't get no packages, no letters or nothing from Christmas. Most of them would wind up alcoholics. They had the same problem. I seen the same things in their life that I had went through, so I could relate to them. So I tried to work with these guys. And the Lord helped me. And I say the Lord did because I look back now and I see that the Lord did help me. Wound up getting the sites cleaned up, getting these guys set up to where they would shave and be in uniform and do their job. And was promoted to sergeant. And then wound up getting a Army Accommodation Medal. But what did it mean to me? Nothing, because I had nobody to share it with. My company commander would write home to my mom and send her letters and tell her what I was doing. She'd send them back. She'd say, I don't believe that. She said, that's not the boy I raised. Well, she didn't raise me, actually. So send those letters back to me. That just made bitterness and hatred stronger in my heart. And I'll be honest with you folks, I hated my mom and I hated my dad. I was in a situation I hated. I was possessed with hatred. I really was. When life is that bad that you can't stay at home and nobody wants you and you're not worth anything and nothing you do is right, you get where you build a defense around you where you hate everything in life. And then you wonder what life's all about. What is life? Why was you born? Why are you here? And I remember, Brother Henson, Christmas time, New Year's, holidays were the worst days of my life. Loneliness, I would have paid somebody to sit down and have dinner with me if I could have found somebody that wouldn't have thought I was crazy and just say, would you sit and talk to me? would you sit and have dinner with me? I was that lonely. Loneliness is like a disease. You can be in a crowd of 100 people, smile, shake hands, and inside you're so lonely and miserable, and all you wanted was somebody to love you, somebody to care, somebody to say, hey, you're doing a good job, somebody to say, you know what, I'm for you, not against you. Never heard nothing like that. Never did in my life. Christmas would come, I'd watch these guys open presents, never received a card. I wound up staying overseas for 6 years in Korea, working on the military, the DMZ. I didn't want to go home. I had nothing to go home to. Life was miserable for me. I re-enlisted after 3.5 years for 3 more years. I was in the military for a total of 7 years, and the only way I would re-enlist is if they gave me $6,000 cash bonus, and they did. I spent that $6,000 partying in 30 days. I mean, I partied, and I blew every dime I had. I didn't realize how bad I was until later on. When you were a sergeant in the Army, you could have a room in the barracks where you could build a wall around your bunk out of plywood, and that would be like your room because you were a sergeant. So I had a private room like that I could go to. It didn't have a top on it. It just had the boards up. If you lost your key to the lock, you just climb over the bunk, climb over the wall, get in bed. So I did that a lot. But for some reason, one night I was really in bad shape, got drunk, and came back from downtown and in Korea, and I climbed over to that wall, and I passed out in that bunk. And the next thing I remember, I heard bells ringing. It was a Sunday morning. I heard church bells ringing. And something said to me, you need to get out of this country. And I thought, you know what? I do. I need to get out of here. I'd been over here 6 years. I didn't know anybody, family, where they were, what they were doing. It didn't really matter. I just felt like I needed to leave. I look back on that now, I could see that was the Lord dealing with me and didn't even know it. I went to the orderly room. I got showered. I got cleaned up. I went to the orderly room, and I told him, I said, I want out of here. I want to go back to the States. My company commander said, Morris, said, you're not going nowhere. Said, you got another year to go. Said, you're staying right here. I said, no. I said, I'm leaving here. I said, I'm going to write to congressman, tell him I've been over here 6 years, and I want to go home. 2 weeks later, I had orders to go to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I didn't have to write nobody. They wanted to send me to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I left Korea after 6 years, got to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I found out when I got there that I was an alcoholic. Drugs were a big part of my life. I would try to get drunk after drinking that stuff in Korea, and I couldn't hardly get drunk. I was in bad shape, full of hatred, full of bitterness. Didn't have no dealings with my family for a long time. Got to Fort Campbell, and after I got there, I would drive from Fort Campbell up to Scott Street in Covington, and I had a sister that would fix me up with her girlfriends, and we'd go party on the weekend. So I would drive from Fort Campbell up to Scott Street and stay with my sister once in a while and go out and party. In July of 77, I was up at my sister's house, and I was getting ready to go out to party, and I was sitting out front, and I had another sister that went to church. She went to Brother Stanton's church, and I was sitting outside. It was on the 4th of July weekend, and I was drinking a bottle of whiskey. She pulled up, and she said, Phil, she said, we're in revival. Would you go to church with me? And I said, let me ask you something. I said, do I offer you my whiskey? She said, no. I said, don't offer me your church. I'll tell you why. My mom would go to church, and they'd come out of church, and they'd cuss, and they'd smoke, and they'd talk about everybody in church. I never saw nobody in church that had anything that I didn't have. If you go to the church, somebody's watching you, people. You may not realize it, but somebody's watching you. When I was a little boy, I saw that, and I didn't see anybody that had anything that I didn't have. So I told her, I said, no, I don't go to your church, and I don't want nothing to do with your people. Little did I know, a month later, in August the 28th, I came up to my sister's house to party. I got so messed up, I wrecked my car, totaled it. I had a 357 Magnum and a 38. I actually was contemplating committing suicide. My life was a total mess. I had nothing and I had nobody. I was in trouble, facing 10 years in the penitentiary where I'd got in trouble. I knew that my life was coming to the end, and I knew it was going to be just like my mom and dad said. I'd never be nothing. I'd never be nobody. It was in my blood. I was going to wind up just like them or wind up dead. I had no hope. No hope. I didn't care what people thought about me. If somebody looked at me funny, I'd walk up and just bust them. I was hoping somebody would just kill me or something would happen to me because I was miserable. Now, people say, how in the world can you get like that? I'm telling you, there's people in today's society, right today, all they want is somebody to love them. That's all they want. They don't want the money. They don't want all the prosperity. They want somebody to love them. Somebody to understand. Somebody that'll care. You can't buy that, folks. If I could have bought that, brother, I'd have bought that. You can't buy that. I'd wrecked my car that night, and somebody put me in a taxi. And I don't know what time it was, but they took me to 12th and Scott Street in Covington, opened the door and rolled me out on the concrete sidewalk, right by my sister's house. I remember I crawled up her steps, pushed her door open with my head, crawled in her house, vomited all over her floor, and passed out drunk in my own vomit. That was my life in a nutshell. That's where I laid. I laid there in the night. She didn't know I was there. I laid there, I don't know how long I was out. I heard a voice say, Philip. And I sat up and my head was a-spinning. And I looked around and it was pitch dark. And I thought, you're just hearing things. I fell back over. I don't know how long I laid there. But I heard a voice say, Philip, so loud that I sat straight up. And when I did, I was sober. I looked around and I said, what? And there was a voice that said, come unto me and I'll give you rest. I never heard anything like that. I jumped up off that floor and I run into my sister's room. I jerked her out of bed. She started screaming. I said, I come in here drunk. I passed out on your floor. I said, somebody called my name. She said, what do you mean? I said, somebody said, Philip, come unto me and I'll give you rest. I didn't know that was in the Bible. She said, Philip, that's the Lord calling you. I said, why would he call me? I don't know him. Why would he even think of me? How did he know my name? How did he know where I was? I just couldn't understand that. My heart was pounding so hard and so fast, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I said, what's he doing in here? Where did he come from? I mean, I had all these questions going through my mind. Why would he deal with me? Why would he say me? So I asked her, I said, my other sister that's going to church, I said, call her house. She said, it's 4 a.m. I said, I don't care what time it is, call her. She picked the phone up and I grabbed the phone and I said, listen, I said, somebody called my name and said, come unto me and I'll give you rest. I said, I don't know what's going on, but I said, if you got church tonight, I'll go. She said, we're still in revival. She said, that revival's been going on for 6 weeks. I said, well, you come get me. And it's a Saturday night. So I walked the floors. I smoked cigarettes all day and I kept asking my sister, why did he come in here? Why did he call my name? How did he know I was here? I didn't understand all that. And I'm telling you, when she showed up that night, my heart was a pounding, and I was fighting with myself. Should I go? Should I not go? Should I stay here? And I thought, man, if you stay here, you're going to drop dead. So I told her she'd come in to get me, and I said, I want to tell you something before we leave here. First one touches me, I'll knock them out. I said, I know how them churches are. They pull you to the front. They beat you on your back. I said, they'll hold you down, say, turn loose, get up, or whatever. But I said, I don't want nobody touching me. She said, Phil, honey, you just go. She said, nobody will touch you. I thought, how you know that? I mean, I know how they were. I went to church with her and her husband that night. We walked in this church, and it was a small church, but it looked big to me. They had chairs down the aisles and chairs on the sides. And I looked up, and my brother-in-law went all the way up to the front, sat down the second pew from the front. I thought, what in the world is wrong with that man? All these seats, and he goes up front. So I look around, and I didn't know nobody, so I went up and sat down behind him. I popped him in the back of the head and said, what are you doing up here? He said, always sit up here. Well, I didn't know that. I didn't know people sat certain places. So I sat there behind him, and the place packed out. I'm telling you, they was shoulder to shoulder, and I couldn't move. I was afraid to look at anybody. Every time I raised my head, it looked like they was staring at me. I thought my sisters told everybody in here about me. And I said that I was so ashamed, so embarrassed. I wanted to get up and run out, but there wasn't nowhere to run. I mean, it was packed. So I sat there. I don't know. Brother Aaron Brock was preaching. I don't know what he preached. I don't know what they sang. I was afraid to look up. I sat there with my head down, and I just wanted to cry, but I wasn't about to cry because you don't cry when you're a man. You know, that's a sign of weakness. So, and I never was used to crying. I was used to just fighting for everything I had to do in life. But I'm telling you, all of a sudden they all started standing, and I asked my sister, I said, what's going on? She said, we stand. She said, they're having an altar call. We stood up. They started singing. And I remember, I thought, man, I got to get out of here. My heart was pounding. I was scared. And I kept looking out of the corner of my eyes, and I seen people with their head bowed, but they was looking my way. I could see them looking my way. And I thought, these people know all about me. I got to get out of here. I stepped out of that aisle with my head down. And Brother Henson, I thought I was heading to the back door. I looked up, and I was heading toward the altar. I couldn't believe it. I said, I got so mad I started crying. I started bawling. Then I got mad because I was crying, and I went to turn around, and my legs gave out on me. I'm telling you the truth. My legs buckled, and people said, I don't believe it. You don't have to believe anything. It didn't happen to you. It happened to me. I'm telling you, my legs buckled, and I found myself crawling to that altar. And you know what? All them people, nobody touched me. I still don't know how they didn't touch me. Nobody laid a hand on me. Nobody didn't touch me. I crawled to that altar. I was blowing snot. I was crying. I was mad because I was crying. I was hurt. My heart was pounding, and I thought, I'm going to die right here on this floor, sure as the world. And I didn't know how to pray. I did not know how to pray. I had never prayed. I didn't know what to say, but my sister told me, she said, you didn't pray, you hollered. She said, you screamed. I remember I laid on that altar with my knees and my elbows, and I said, God, if you're real, if you're really real, and you could save my soul and forgive me my sins, then you save me, and you have mercy on me. And you give me something my mom didn't have, and my dad didn't have, and all these people I've seen through the years didn't have. I said, if you're really real and you can do that, Lord, would you help me? And if you can't do it, then leave me alone so I can go on, because I don't want to be up and down, in and out. If this is real, I want the real thing. I looked up and I saw an arm reach down, and it went right inside of my mouth. And when he come pulling out, I come raising up off that altar. I'm telling you, when that arm come completely out of me, I come out of there and I was shouting all over the place. If you was right beside me, I was hugging people. I didn't care if they was male, female, little, big, old. I didn't care who I never felt nothing in my life like that. I felt love for the first time. And almost 30 years, I felt love in my soul. How did that happen? How in the world? I said, where did he come from? How did he know I was there? Why would he help me when nobody wanted me, when nobody cared, and they thought I would be nothing? He came right in there, took my soul, washed it in his blood, cleansed it up, and baptized me in the Spirit of God, and made me a new person all in one night. How does that happen? How in the world does that happen? I bawled and I cried. I said, I can't believe this. I feel so young. I feel so happy. I didn't have a dime in my pocket, but I was rich in my soul. I didn't want to go to bed. They had to carry me out of the church, put me in the car. I'm telling you, I got home. I kept everybody up. They called my family and said, Phil got saved. They said, no way. Ain't no way. Phil got saved. Telling you, no way. They all piled in the back of that church the next night, Sunday night. They had to come see. Are you kidding me? He got saved. Is this real? They had to come and see. I'm telling you, they got to singing them sweet songs of Zion. I come up out of that pew, shouting, running around that church. I didn't care. That was the only bad thing, Brother Henson. It took the Lord a long time to get that out of me. I didn't care about people and what they thought, man. They didn't care about me for years. I didn't care about them. They tell me sit down. I just smile at them, said, I started sitting. I've sat all my life. This is real. I'm telling you, I had something for the first time in my life that took a hold of my soul and turned my life around. I'm telling you, I went to bed singing. You ever go to bed singing? I used to go to bed cursing. I went to bed singing. I didn't have to worry about what I'd done last night. I didn't have to worry about him coming to get me the next day. I'm telling you, God saved my soul. I went back to Fort Campbell on Monday. I was late getting back. I didn't care. Walked into the holy room, and they was screaming and hollering, cussing me out for being late. And me and the first sergeant never did get along anyway. And he said, what in the world's wrong with you, Morse? And I started bawling. I was bawling. I couldn't quit crying. I was a heaving. You thought, and everybody in the holy room just got quiet. And everybody's standing there staring at me because they never seen me like that before. They always saw me ready to fight and ready to scream, ready to holler. Right? They never seen me like that. But all I could do was cry. They said, what happened to you? I said, I got saved. They said, what's that? I said, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I know I got it. Woo! How do you know? How do you know? I said, there's something inside of me. I said, I'm telling you, it changed my life. I don't cuss no more. I said, I ain't even said a cuss word in 5 days. I mean, how do you do that? I said, I ain't took a drink. I ain't smoked a cigarette. I said, I'm saved. And they just stood there and stared at me. And the first sergeant said, there's something wrong with you. I said, there is. There's something wrong with me. Don't change it. I like the way I am for the first time in my life. He sent me to the chaplain, and the chaplain was a psychiatrist, and I didn't know that at the time. And he asked me what was wrong with me. He said, what's wrong with you, Sergeant? Well, I went through the whole thing, told him what happened, and he just sat there and stared at me. He said, get out of here. So I went out of there. I got out, went back to the order room, and the first sergeant said, what did he say? I said, he said, get out of there. He started screaming, hollering, cussing. I started crying again. I just couldn't quit crying. Man, I felt that joy in my soul. I didn't care what they thought. I didn't care what they said. I thought, man, I have got something I've never had. Taste of me and see that I am good. I didn't know that was in the Bible, but that's in the Bible. I got one taste of him, and it changed my whole life. Can you believe that? They said, you'll never make it. I came home on leave, came back up to Cincinnati. My dad, he called me and he said, listen to me, son. He said, you need to go eat with me. He said, I got to talk to you. And I saw, we went out to eat, and I was smiling and I was happy. Nobody ever seen me like that. Nobody had ever seen me happy in my family, I'm telling you. But I had a new personality. I had a new heart, a new mind. It didn't matter what they said or what they did. I'm telling you, the second night after I got saved, on a Sunday night, I felt so much joy in my soul. I jumped up, grabbed a microphone, and tried to sing to the Lord. And a brother met me in the back of the church, and he said, I enjoyed that screaming. I said, I want to tell you something, brother. I wasn't screaming for you. I was screaming for him. I said, he saved my soul. It didn't matter to me if you liked it or don't like it. I'm going to sing no matter what anybody says. I had never sung, and now I got a new song, and I'm going to sing it. Glory to God. But my dad, he wanted to meet me, so he met me out there, and we went to dinner, and he was mad. I could tell the way he was acting. He was mad, and I felt sorry for him. You know, God took all that bitterness out of my heart for my mom and dad, and I had a love for them. I hated them with a passion, and as much as I hate them, I turned around and loved them. I don't know how that works. But I loved him, and when I seen him, I cried, and I put my arm around him, and he shoved me off and sit down. I sat down, and we ate out the Colonial Cottage. He met me out there, and he was hitting his cup. When he slammed his cup of coffee down, he'd do it hard, his forks, and I just sat there and smiling. I mean, I was at peace. Man, for the first time in my life, I had peace. Folks, if you've never had peace, you can have peace. I'm telling you, you can have somebody that loves you. You don't have to be alone. You don't have to be all by yourself. Nobody told me that. Nobody ever told me that Jesus loved me. Can you believe that? People go to church day and night, all the time, and walk right by people and don't even tell them somebody loves you. Now, I don't know if it would have affected me or not. I don't know if I'd have paid attention, but I'd like to have heard that there is somebody that loves you and died for you and to help you. I mean, that was amazing to me. I wasted all them years begging for somebody to love me. And here was a man that I never met come in and love me in the shape I was in. When nobody wanted me, he wanted me. I have never got over that. The other day, I was rehearsing this in my mind and started bawling and crying going down the road. I thought, why, Lord? Millions of people in the world. Why didn't you just let me die in my sins? But he loved me. Oh, what a love. Can't explain it. You got to experience it. You can't explain it. I sat there and my dad looked at me and he stuck his finger in my nose. He said, I want to tell you something. He said, I lived that life. He said, I tried it. I had the Holy Ghost. He said, I was saved. He said, I went around and helped these preachers. He said, you can't live it. You can't live it. He said, I'm telling you right now, you can't live it. He said, he said, I know I ain't been your dad, and I ain't done nothing for you. And he said, but you're 10 times worse than I ever was. You can't live it. I sat there and I looked at him and I started crying. I said, you know what, Dad? Maybe you're right. Maybe I can't live it, but he can live it. I said, he that came into my soul can give me strength to live this. And he got mad and got up and walked out. And you know what? 35 years later, I'm still living this glorious gospel. What a Savior. What a Redeemer. My, how great God is. My dad walked in my office in August of 98 and sat down and was crying. And I asked him what was wrong, and he said, I thought I had kidney stones, found I got cancer of the kidneys. And he said, I'm dying. And he got real bad real quick, and of course I was trying to take care of him. And we took out an insurance policy, me and my wife. The Lord had dealt with me about taking an insurance policy out on him 3 years prior to that because he was an alcoholic, and he didn't have anything. So I was sitting by his bedside before he left the world, and just me and him. And I was holding his hand, and he opened his eyes, looked at me, and he said, I need to tell you something. I said, okay. He said, I cashed part of that insurance policy in. Well, I started crying because we had a hard time paying for that thing with 5 kids. And I patted his hand. I said, that's all right, Dad. I said, we'll work it out. And he looked at me and he said, I was wrong. He said, you're a good boy. I said, Dad, it's in the blood. It's in the blood. All them years they told me I'd be just like them because it was in my blood. I wanted him to know it was in the blood of Jesus Christ that changed my life. And he looked at me and smiled. But that tells you that the blood of Jesus can change you and make you new. Praise God. I still had 10 months to go in the military when I got saved. I got saved in 77 of August. The 28th, I got born again. Didn't even know that was possible. Met a man named Jesus. And I'm telling you, the holidays are brutal for people that don't know the Lord. I mean, it's a torment. I've been there. But I'm telling you, if you just get alone and kneel down and say, God, if you're really real, would you have mercy on my soul and help me? And give me something that this world ain't got. That's what I said, and that's what he did. And the Lord has helped me ever since. Now, you know, after the Lord did that to me, it changed my life in such a way I never asked man for nothing. I never did anyway, but I sure wasn't going to ask him. After I found out this man named Jesus knew where I was and he knew my name, when I found that out, and I found out he knew all about my sins and how wicked I was and loved me enough to save my soul and fill it with his love and turn my life around, I'll never understand how you can drink for all them years and cuss and carry on and hate that bad. And then one trip to the altar, he takes that old man out of you, puts a new man in you, and you get up and you look at yourself and say, what in the world? How can he do that? But he does it. He does it. And no matter what anybody says, they can't take that away from you. Can you believe that? I finally got something nobody can take. Nobody can take. Now, I'm telling you, I never trusted nobody after that. And I don't mean to drag on here. I need to tell you a little bit more if I can. Now, I may stumble and fall when I tell you about how I was raised. But when I come to telling you about this man named Jesus, it does something different to me, see? Because he's the one that saved my life. He's the one that turned my life around. No education. Still today, 64 years old, still has no high school education. What about that? So I'm sitting in the church that I came up on the weekends after I got saved, and sitting in the church, sitting on the pew, and I see that little wife of mine. She wasn't married at that time. And I said, Lord, can I marry her? I didn't want to ask nobody. They never did ask nobody for nothing. I wasn't about to ask nobody then. And the Lord spoke to me and said, marry her. I jumped up, ran over and grabbed her hand and said, I'm marrying you. And she just stood there and stared at me like there's something wrong with me. There was. I was saved. I was born again. And the master of my soul told me I could marry my wife. I said, I'm marrying you. And it just dumbfounded the whole church. I know it did. Because who's this guy that came in off the streets, that was in the mess he was in, walk in here and want to marry one of our little girls in the church? It didn't matter what they said. I talked to the master. So I told her I was going to marry her and didn't even have a job. Didn't have a job. My mom sent her a letter and said, don't marry him. He'll never be no good. He'll never work. He'll never be nothing. That's the way he always was. That's the way he always would be. I said, don't worry about that. I said, I'm going to marry you. So I prayed and I sought the Lord. A place downtown, and I applied for a job down there, and a Duro paper bag. And we was over in Cincinnati, and she was going to sell her piano. She had a little piano to get her a wedding dress, and because I wasn't working. And ain't nothing like a boy in the church wanting to marry a girl and ain't got a job, you know. That just makes the church so happy. And I could see everybody looking at me funny and talking around my back. I didn't care. Because the Lord told me I could marry her. And if he told me I could marry her, then that told me that he's got some plan for me, a job somewhere, and that he was going to take care of me, and they don't know about it, but that was mine and his secret. And just because I didn't know how it was going to go off don't mean it wasn't going to happen, because I was trusting him and I believed him and I didn't believe man, and I was going to wait on him and he was going to fix it. So we're standing downtown in Cincinnati, and the Lord spoke to me and said, go in this bank and borrow $500. Well, I didn't have a job. So I told her, I said, let's go in this bank. I'm going to borrow $500 to borrow the money to buy us what we need. We go in, I sat down, I told the guy I want to borrow $500, and he said, where do you work? I said, I don't. He said, you want to borrow $500 and you don't work? Oh, I said, well, maybe I do. I don't know for sure. And he sat there and looked at me. And he said, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, I applied for a job at Duro Paper Bag, and I don't know for sure if they're going to hire me. They're going to let me know today sometime. And he said, well, how much were they going to start you at? I said, I don't know. I didn't ask him. He sat there and looked at me some more. And then he said, do you mind if I call him? I said, no, call him. So he called him. And he said, I got a man in my office. He told him who I was. And he said he had an interview with you and took a physical, and he wants to know if he's got the job. And they said, yeah, he's got the job. He starts Monday. And he said, well, how much does he make? And they told him. He hung the phone up and he looked at me. He said, you got the job and you start Monday. I said, well, good. And he sat there and stared at me. And he said, now, why do you want this money? I said, I'm getting married. He pulled a check out. He wrote at it. He had me sign a paper. He said, I'm going to loan you the $500. Now, I don't know. See, he didn't want to do that, but the Lord told him to do that. Now, I'm telling you, God will make a way where there is no way if people will learn to trust him. Trust him. And so, you know, we got what we needed. We got married, and I'm not even going to go through all that because it'll take too long, but we got married. But what I want to tell you is I didn't trust nobody but the Lord. Today, I don't trust nobody but the Lord. Every job I have, the Lord's told me where to go to work. And they said I couldn't work because I had club feet, and I'd have to sit behind a desk, and that I would be blind. You can see I'm not blind, I'm not bald-headed, and I don't have club feet. And I do have a job, and God gave it to me, and I do have a wife, and I do have 5 children, and they're all preaching the gospel, and they're all serving the Lord, and they're trying to win souls in this last day. So no matter how old you are, no matter where you are, you may be sitting by a dumpster pulling garbage out of it. You may be laying in your bed with nobody to love you. You may be alone, lost, wonder why you're even living. There's a man named Jesus looking for you. And if you'll call out to him, he said, I come to seek and to save those that were lost. Thank God. Because man will not help you. They can't help you. God will help you. And turn your life around. And I'm telling you, it's joy unspeakable and full of glory. To wake up in the morning and to know that the Redeemer of my soul let me open my eyes. Is there mountains? Yep. There valleys? Yep. I had those when I was a sinner. But I've got the master now. Oh, God's so good to us, church. The Lord's so good to us. He's blessed us going and coming. I praise the Lord, and I thank him for this great salvation. There's so much to tell. There's so much that God's done. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for him. And I probably haven't scratched the surface, and I lost concentration on all my notes, and I knew I would. But I'm telling you, I don't need a note to tell you that God's real. And that he'll help you if you'll let him. And he'll save your soul if you'll call on him. So at this time, if it'd be all right, could we stand? And if anybody would like to give us a song and come pray, I'm telling you, this is the best time of the year. You know, I'd like to say this if I could real quick. This company I work for, they don't give out Christmas bonuses. So through the year, I would try to scrap everything we could to save money so at Christmas time we could buy a gift for our employees. We had 5 branches. I wanted to personally buy the gift and personally wrap the gift and then have them come in and present everybody with a gift. If it was, and I tried, Brother Henson, to do it where I could spend $100 on each person. And when I first started, we had maybe 20 people, then it got to 30, then it got up to 60, 70, 80 people. And so it would take me a couple of days to buy these gifts and wrap them. And one night while I was wrapping these gifts, I got to thinking, if I could wrap this salvation and put it under a tree, when these employees opened it the next morning, they could experience the same gift as me. And I got to crying. And as fast as I could write this came to me. I like to read it. It's Christmas. Greatest gift. I'll never forget the day I received the greatest gift of all. The gift of forgiveness of my sins, both great and small. And Christmas is a reminder of the giving grace of God. How some completely miss the meaning and others think we're odd. But oh, if I could wrap it as a gift and put it under a tree. And when you opened it on Christmas Day, you would experience the same gift as me. Your life would have such meaning, such joy and peace to give. No longer would you be sorrowful, but thankful for every day you lived. If I could wrap it as a gift and put it under a tree, then the world would understand and how happy life would be. There was a day God wrapped this gift in swaddling clothes, and he laid it in a stable. He gave it to the whole wide world for all of those that were able to accept, able to believe, able to repent of their sins, and able to receive. Folks, if we'll just believe and repent, God will help you and save your soul. And that's my wish for this year, that God would touch the hearts of people and give them that gift that he gave me. Praise God.